Welcome back to a second round of book recommendations. The other day I was looking through my bookshelves and I saw some of my old favorites that I thought you guys might like to see or hear more about. A lot of the questions and comments I've been getting have been that you guys really enjoy young adult fiction, which is great because that's one of my absolutely favorite genres and I have a lot of recommendations to make there. So, without further ado, here are some of my young adult lit recommendations. Some of them are my absolute childhood favorites, and I can't wait to share them with you. The Protector of the Small series by Tamora Pierce. I loved all of Tamora Pierce's books growing up, and I've read, I think, every single one she's written. The Protector of the Small series really holds a special place in my heart. It's about a girl who decides to be the second female knight in a medieval fantasy kingdom where magic exists, and instead of using magic or having magic, she uses her brain and her willpower and just a really wonderful sense of right and wrong. She's very justice-oriented, and she's really a relatable character. What I love about her so much is that she never compromises her principles for others, and I think she's a great role model for young girls. Here's a wonderful book that I got from the library when I was a kid, and I liked it so much that I picked up a copy for myself years later. It's called Adam and Eve and Pinch Me. It's about a girl who's a foster child and her placement with a new family, and her unwillingness to trust that new family, but then slowly she grows to trust them and begins to deal with life in a new way. Madeleine L'Engle's A Ring of Endless Light, my favorite book. I remember I was reading it in 5th grade, and it was just awesome. It's about a girl learning about life, working through her grandfather's illness, and swimming with dolphins. What more could you ask for? Also by Madeleine L'Engle is Troubling a Star. This is sort of a follow-up to A Ring of Endless Light. It's in the same universe, the same family, the same protagonist, years later, though. And there are other books that include these characters, but A Ring of Endless Light and Troubling a Star are by far my favorites. I know a lot of you read The Giver in middle school. What you may not know is that within the universe of The Giver, Lois Lowry wrote several other books. And my favorite of those books is Gathering Blue. It's about a young girl who's on her own, she's disabled, and she uses needlecraft as a way to sort of express herself. I have always loved retellings of old folk tales and fairy tales, and this is a really good one. It's called The Perilous Gard. It's set in the time of Queen Elizabeth, and the protagonist has been banished from court, not because of something she did, but because of something her sister did. And she is sent to live in a far-off keep in a forest, and she meets someone, and basically it's a retelling of the old ballad Tam Lin. So if you like retellings of fairy tales, I really think you'll like this one. Oh, this is such a great book. This is another one that I used to check out from the library in my hometown all the time, and then when I got older, I finally just bought a copy. It's about a girl who learns about photography from a boy. She goes to meet him, they live in London, and they go to Brighton, and it's about them getting to know each other. Very young adult romance, but it's really, really good. I am a big lover of all needlecrafts, and it's hard for young girls to find books that sort of represent that in a modern fashion. You know, there's lots of sewing and Little Women, but not so much in books written when I was a child. So I loved finding When Angels Turn Their Backs by Margaret Buffie. It's about a girl who's working through the divorce of her parents, and she really loves embroidery, and I really loved embroidery when I was a kid, so it was really great to find a character who was sort of a lot like me, who loved needlecrafts as much as I did. A Rat's Tale. I had to pull this off the shelf and share it with you. It's very much a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but with rats. Montague Mad Rat is the protagonist, and he is delightful. I love Joan Bauer's writing. Hope Was Here is a great story about a girl who moves with her aunt to a new city. She's a waitress, and she's making new relationships and sort of discovering more about the world and political justice and life. And it's just really great. Over the Water. I love this book. If you're interested in books about mothers and daughters and women throughout the generations of their family and how they relate to each other, grandmothers, mothers, aunts, daughters, nieces, read this book. It's also a really good book if you're interested in Ireland and England and what happened in the years, I think this book is set maybe in the 1930s, 1940s, I would have to recheck, but it's about when many families in Ireland had to move away because they had to find jobs and there weren't enough jobs in Ireland, and what happened when they raised their children in a foreign country, England, in a different culture, and how they dealt with that different culture by going home once a year. So this is a really great book and you should read it. Yet another retelling. You're sensing a theme here. This is The Fire Rose by Mercedes Lackey. It's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but from a pretty fresh perspective, and I think the heroine is really sort of spunky and fun. So here are two books by Liz Berry. First is Mel, which I think is my favorite, although it's hard to choose one. It's about a teenage girl whose mother has schizophrenia, and so she grows up caring for her mother, but at a certain point she's no longer able to, and so she's placed in foster care with the family across the street, and she decides to refurbish and redecorate her house for her mother, but so that it will be a nice place when her mother comes back home. It's set in London, it's really great, and it's also a love story, so you should definitely try this one. And then there's The China Garden, and The China Garden has more of a magical feel to it. It's about a girl who finds out that she's a descendant of a sort of magical line of people who have this great duty of protecting a certain treasure, and also a love story. So you should try these if you're interested in that. I love Jellicoe Road. It's a young adult novel, but whenever I read it, I am just swept away by the words and by the feelings. It's really fantastic. Essentially, it's about a young girl who is an orphan and who grew up at a boarding school. She sort of has an adopted aunt who takes care of her during breaks, but she lives at the boarding school full time. And it's about the group of friends that she has, but it's also about what happened in the generation preceding her, and we find out a lot of secrets and mysteries are solved, and relationships are renewed throughout the book. And The Secrets Under My Skin. This is set in a dystopian future, so if you like young adult fiction with a bit of a dystopian feel, definitely try this. It's about a young girl who was orphaned, she grew up on the streets, eventually she's found and taken to a workhouse, and she loves literature, but she has to keep it a secret so that she doesn't seem too different from the other girls. And eventually she gets taken in by a certain family to work, and then you sort of see her really come into her own and find her unique, special talents, and it's just, it holds a special place in my heart as well. Okay, so those are some more book recommendations if you're interested in the young adult fiction line. All of these are books that I hold on to because they really have a place in my heart, and so I hope that you maybe pick one and try one if you also like young adult fiction. They're also all older titles, and so if you sort of have already covered what's out there on the market right now as far as young adult fiction goes, now go back a few years and try some of these that have been out for a while, some of them for decades, because they are really, really good.